Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm for Classic and welcome to BenchART. So for today I do have need another game from the first trimester of 2025. It is Lost Records Boom and Rage. So essentially Records Boom and Rage, it is a game, another one using Unreal Engine 5 and it is developed by Dontnod. So it's essentially the same developers of Life is Strange, but I feel that Life is Strange it was way more acceptable than this one, or at least it was more accepted as a game than this one. This one seems to be strange, at least so far at the very beginning. But I'm not here to discuss that. I'm here to discuss about the performance that you can expect from this game and my recommendations. So my recommended setting for play this game, it is essentially to play at 1080p high settings. Use TSR on low at 67%. So essentially we are upscaling from 720p to 1080p and using the high settings in here. Um, Even while doing this, performance is overall above 60. There are some areas, as you could saw at the very beginning, where the game did drop below 60. I don't think this is important, to be honest, since this is a narrative game and I'm not expecting you to be fast doing anything in this game. But if you want to ensure really a locked 60, I would decrease post processing to medium, because it's mostly the depth of field that does cause most of the impacts in here. But as you can see, apart from that, and during regular gameplay like pointing the camera or just walking around it, I'm just having like more than 100 frames, so that's why it's hard to recommend for you to drop the entire preset to medium. Just keep it on high and decrease post processing to medium and enjoy the game as it is. So yeah, I'm using the camera. The camera in here is not really very demanding, so I'm just going to record some stuff in here that it is supposed for you to record, or the game does expect you to record. And well, as soon as you are done and remove the camera, frame rate drops to 85, but it's still very well playable. Alright, so that's actually very good. I will talk a little bit more further about the TSR low and high and what's the difference. But first I want to show you other settings that I also tried at 1080p, of course, because I always do this. And essentially on the left you have the 1080p median with TSR low at 67%, so frame rate is brutal in here, it's completely over than 60. Although if you go with 1080p high with TSR on low and native resolution, instead of the upscaling, you can expect the game to drop more often than not from 60. It might be a good idea if you have a variable refresh rate screen, but even so, the drops might be very big to a point that having even those screens doesn't really make any difference in that sense. So yeah, and also try 1080p maximum with TSR on high instead of low at 100%. And this is a good option to walk at 30. Uh, but even so, you can expect drops below than 30 if you go with this setting. Alright, so I think that's all about 1080p, so let's just move on to 1440p and see how it goes. So 1440p, so I do recommend you to drop a little bit the preset, so instead of using 1080p high and TSR low at 67%, at 1440p I think you should go with medium settings in here. And this also guarantees you a locked 60 frames per second, alright, even more stable than 1080p high. So I don't think I have too much to add. So I promise you that I will talk a little bit about TSR low and high, but first let me just tell you that using TSR low at 67% you are essentially upscaling from something in a little bit higher than 900p, alright, which is pretty cool, and TSR does an incredible job. Now the thing is, TSR on low, it is way less demanding than TSR on high. TSR on low performance level kind of sits in the same pocket or same branch or same circle as FSR or Intel XeSS. So they are all very comparable when it comes to the performance offerings, and quality it is also pretty good. But if you go with TSR high, it is actually much more demanding than TSR on low, but it's actually much better. So it's a little bit like DLSS for CNN and DLSS for transformer model. The transformer model, despite it is better, it also consumes more frames than the CNN model. But yeah, I'm not comparing quality in here between DLSS and TSR. Obviously, DLSS is far superior, but what I'm trying to say is that for having a higher quality upscaling, you also have to have a penalty in performance. This happens in DLSS, this happens in FSR 3 and 4, FSR 4 being more demanding than FSR 3, and the same goes with TSR, where TSR high is considerably much more demanding than low. The thing is, I don't think that TSR low it is already good enough, and I would only reserve the TSR high for when you don't have anything other to raise, alright? So median settings was my choice in here, what I consider to be my recommended choice, but of course you also have other options as usual. So in here on the left you have 1440p high settings, so it's essentially the same settings as 1080p, and you can expect drops as low as 40 frames per second in this section. And if you decide to go with 1440p high settings, TSR on low at 100%, so native 1440p with TSR on low, you get what I consider to be a good lock experience to 30 frames per second, in case you are wondering. Um, just like 1080p, 1440p high with upscaling, probably it's much better with a variable refresh rate screen. But again, I'm not really sure what you will find, and if drops are below than 40 frames per second, that might pose to be an issue to many of the screens that have variable refresh rate. So other things that I want to communicate is that I did push texture quality to high or very high in all the presets, mostly because we have the VRAM to spare. So this GPU have 12 gigabytes of VRAM, so I decided to increase texture quality for all of them because we just have the GPU for that. So let me just show you. So this is 4K. We are starting the 4K branch in here, and of course I'm just showing off that it is set. I need to use borderless in here for this to activate. I'm using 50% resolution scaling, and despite I'm using all the settings at low, I'm using textures on very high because it does make a difference. And we have the VRAM to spare, so it's actually consuming around 7 gigabytes of VRAM, which means that we have 5 gigabytes of VRAM to spare in here. So that's a lot of VRAM that we have to spare in here, so that's why I did raise the texture quality to very high. So my recommended setting for 4K it is both settings, using TSR low at 50%. This should grant you a perfect locks to 60 frames per second, and actually low settings doesn't look really that bad, at least on the first environments that I did try out it seemed pretty good. It's not those types of low settings that looks like junk, this one still looks really good in my opinion. So I'm just going to skip forward to the other settings in here, and as usual, well, on the left we have 4K median settings with TSR low at 57%. I think this is a good setting for the 30 frames per second lock. You have kind of a margin in case the game needs to be more demanding. It won't be dropping below 30. But if in case you want to go with 1440p high TSR on low at 67%, it is also a good option if you want to walk to 30. But there are some areas where the game might drop below than 30. So I don't think it's really that recommended in that sense. But honestly, it's really up to you to decide what you want to do with your settings. The only thing that I wanted to show you is what can you expect from the performance of this game with this GPU. Alright, so I think that's all that I want to talk about Lost Records Rage and Bloom. Keep in mind that this was the first episode, episode 2 or tape 2 like they call it. It is now available. Alright, so I think that's all. Hope you did enjoy the video and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.